3rd century BC, one of the greatest Greek cities stood at the height of its power on the island of Sicily, Syracuse. It was an age when, following the conquests of Alexander the Great, the Greek world stretched from the Mediterranean to Egypt and as far as India. It was also a time of extraordinary scientific and technological progress. Around 240 BC, the people of Syracuse combined the arts of shipbuilding and engineering to create a vessel so enormous and so magnificent that it astonished everyone who saw it. Its name was Syracusia. Our knowledge of this remarkable ship comes primarily from Athenaeus of Naucratis, a Greek scholar of the 2nd century AD, who described it in his work, The Deipnosophists. More than a millennium later, in 1671, the Dutch scholar Nicolaas Witsen used Athenaeus's account to produce this famous reconstruction of the ship. According to Athenaeus, Hieron II, the ruler of Syracuse, ordered that enough timber be felled from the forests of Mount Etna to build 60 triremes. He commanded that planks and iron nails be prepared, that every suitable type of timber be gathered from across Sicily and the Italian mainland, ropes be imported from Spain, pitch from the Rhine, and countless other materials be brought in from every possible source. Shipwrights, craftsmen, and engineers were assembled for this extraordinary undertaking. Hieron appointed the Corinthian shipbuilder Archias to oversee the project and instructed everyone to work with unwavering dedication, while he personally supervised the construction almost every day. 300 workers were employed solely in preparing the timber, not including their assistants. Within just 6 months, half of the vessel had been completed, and it was decided to launch the unfinished hull so that construction could continue afloat. In the ancient world, ships were normally launched by placing wooden rollers beneath the hull and pushing them toward the sea with teams of laborers, sometimes assisted by animals. But in the case of Syracusia, that traditional method proved impossible. Even half finished, the ship had already become so massive and so heavy that neither human nor animal strength was enough to move it. Faced with this problem, Hieron turned to one of Syracuse's greatest minds, a brilliant engineer and inventor whose name would become famous throughout history, Archimedes. Archimedes was the first to formulate the principle of buoyancy, known today as the Archimedes principle, as well as the law of the lever. He understood that a lever could multiply human strength through mechanical advantage, allowing a single person to move loads that would otherwise be impossible to shift by sheer force alone. To launch the ship, Archimedes designed a powerful winch system. Using a long lever and the coordinated effort of only a handful of men, he succeeded in moving the enormous vessel into the sea, an achievement that amazed everyone who witnessed it. 6 months later, the ship's exterior had been completed, and work continued on its lavish interior. Syracusia was propelled by 20 banks of oars. Deep within the ship was a vast cargo hold, reached by 2 grand staircases, each with numerous steps. The vessel contained 30 cabins, each furnished with 4 beds. Its magnificent banquet hall accommodated 15 dining couches, while the kitchens were located toward the stern. Even more remarkable, the floors throughout these rooms were decorated with elaborate mosaic artwork made from stones of many different colors, depicting scenes from Homer's Iliad. Along the upper deck were a gymnasium and spacious promenades surrounded by beautifully landscaped gardens filled with a wide variety of plants. Overhead, large awnings provided shade. They were covered with ivy and grapevines whose roots drew moisture from barrels filled with soil and were watered just like gardens on land. There was also a magnificent temple of Aphrodite, its floor crafted from agate and many other beautiful stones found on the island of Sicily. Adjacent to these spaces was a reception hall that housed a library. There was also a bath complex equipped with 3 bronze boilers for heating water and a marble-lined bathtub capable of holding about 200 liters. The marble itself came from Tauromenium, present-day Taormina. The ship even included 10 horse stalls on each side, together with storage areas for fodder, as well as the weapons and equipment of the cavalrymen and their attendants. There was also a large seawater aquarium, constructed from heavy wooden beams and lined with lead, where numerous live fish were kept. Around the exterior of the vessel stood colossal figures of Atlas, each about 6 cubits, or nearly 3 meters tall. Spaced evenly along the hull, they appeared to support the upper structure of the ship, while the entire exterior was richly adorned with painted decorative scenes. But Syracusia was far more than a luxurious floating palace. It was also a floating fortress. The ship carried 8 defensive towers, 2 at the stern, 2 at the bow, and 4 amidships. Each tower was fitted with openings from which massive stones could be hurled onto enemy ships attempting to come alongside. It also carried a giant catapult, designed by Archimedes, capable of hurling 80-kilogram stones and enormous spear-like bolts, measuring 5.5 meters in length. To repel enemy boarding attempts, the ship was protected by iron spikes projecting from its sides, capable of piercing approaching vessels. It also carried fearsome devices known as iron crows. These machines could seize enemy ships and twist them into vulnerable positions, exposing them to devastating attacks. Syracusia was rigged with 3 large sails mounted on 3 masts, allowing the enormous vessel to make effective use of favorable winds. Yet when construction was finally complete, Athenaeus tells us that Hieron realized the ship was simply too large for any harbor in Sicily to accommodate. Rather than let this extraordinary achievement remain idle, he loaded it with approximately 2,500 tons of grain and presented it as a gift to Ptolemy III, king of Egypt. At the time, Egypt was experiencing a severe grain shortage, making the vessel both an impressive diplomatic gift and a vital relief shipment. Before it departed for Alexandria, Hieron renamed the ship Alexandris. That is the story of Syracusia as recorded by Athenaeus. Yet it raises an intriguing question. Why would Hieron invest enormous resources in building such a magnificent ship, only to give it away to Alexandria once it was completed? During the Hellenistic age, the Greek city-states and kingdoms competed not only through military power, but also through monumental projects that showcased their wealth, prestige, scientific knowledge, and technological achievement. The Lighthouse of Alexandria and the Colossus of Rhodes are among the most famous examples. Viewed in this context, Syracusia may have been intended as a floating monument, a spectacular demonstration of Syracuse's prosperity, its mastery of shipbuilding, and its engineering excellence. But once construction was complete, serious practical problems must have become impossible to ignore. A vessel of such immense size and weight would have been extremely difficult to maneuver. Even with hundreds of oarsmen, generating enough thrust for rapid turns or quick changes of course would have been a formidable challenge. Such maneuverability was essential for avoiding reefs, navigating confined waters, and entering harbors, very few of which were deep enough to accommodate a ship with Syracusia's enormous draft. Its sails, meanwhile, would have been truly effective only in open water and only with favorable winds. The ship's massive superstructure would also have exposed a huge surface to crosswinds, causing it to drift off course, or in strong winds, leaving it almost entirely at the mercy of the elements. Heavy seas posed an even greater threat. Because so much of the ship's weight was concentrated high above the waterline, its center of gravity would have been unusually high, reducing its transverse stability. After rolling in large waves, the vessel would have had a diminished ability to right itself, increasing the risk of capsizing. Its extraordinary length, estimated to have exceeded 100 meters, would have created another serious structural challenge. In rough seas, the hull would have been subjected to intense bending stresses, known in modern naval architecture as hogging and sagging. As waves passed beneath the ship, these forces could have opened cracks in the hull or, in the most extreme circumstances, even broken the vessel apart. Finally, maintaining such an enormous ship would have placed a tremendous financial burden on Syracuse, requiring vast resources simply to keep it operational. All of this likely convinced Hieron that Syracusia was simply too expensive and too impractical to keep. Rather than dismantle the ship, a move that would have diminished the prestige of Syracuse, he chose to transform it into a powerful diplomatic gesture. Loaded with grain, the vessel was sent to Alexandria as a gift to Ptolemy III Euergetes, king of Egypt. In doing so, Hieron strengthened Syracuse's ties with the Ptolemaic kingdom, while ensuring that this extraordinary ship would remain in one of the greatest cities of the ancient world, where it would stand as a lasting testament to Syracuse's shipbuilding expertise and engineering achievement. The voyage from Syracuse to Alexandria appears to have been the only journey Syracusia ever made. It was most likely undertaken during the calm summer months, when the Mediterranean was at its most navigable. Smaller escort vessels probably accompanied the giant ship, assisting with maneuvering, transporting passengers ashore, and standing by in case the vessel encountered serious trouble at sea. What became of Syracusia after reaching Alexandria remains unknown. It most likely remained in the harbor until the end of its existence. Some years later, Ptolemy IV Philopator, successor to Ptolemy III, ordered the construction of an even larger ship, equipped with 40 banks of oars. Ancient sources refer to it simply as the Syracusia. The vessel measured approximately 130 meters in length, 17 meters in beam, and rose to a height of more than 20 meters. Yet, as Plutarch observed, it resembled a stationary building more than a practical ship. It was built to impress rather than to sail, and its operation was considered both difficult and hazardous. For that reason, Syracusia remains the largest known ship of antiquity ever to have sailed successfully on the open sea.